Vankahs, before we get into this amazing episode with LawVS, we got to thank our presenting sponsor, BetMGM. As you know, we're with BetMGM this season, and this podcast is now brought to you by BetMGM. Now on to the show.
What's up, Vankahs?
Hello, Vankahs.
How is everybody doing?
How are you doing? Are you recovering from the Monza GP? How are you just sitting with what's going on at McLaren? What's going to happen the rest of the season? We don't know. There's so much going on. There's something actually to talk about this year. I couldn't be more excited.
Too bad we don't have anybody to talk about it with at all.
Yeah, too bad we don't have someone who is a McLaren stan and expert and conspiracy theory with. Oh my God! Is that LawVS?
Hey, I heard McLaren and drama. I had to say hello.
That's right. We are everyone. We have LawVS on the podcast. You've seen his stuff on YouTube. He is the man with the ladder. We weren't sure if the ladder was going to be on the pod today. We could be more thrilled that it is.
Wow, I had a whole bit about how I was going to be disappointed that you weren't in the ladder, and then, damn, you just fully committed to the interview on the ladder.
Well, fortunately, my technical setup allowed me to do it. So, you know, I've got myself, I've got my ladder, I've got my patrons right here, I've got my foam of doubt. I've pretty much got the whole kit and caboodle. So
dude, you're like the McLaren factory in Woking. You've got it all going on, but hopefully you've got better, strategy that we could talk about today. Let's just get right into that because we know that you're a McLaren. We know that you're a McLaren, specifically an Oscar stan.
Yeah, I mean, as in, like, if I couldn't have my boy Mick in F1, Oscar would be doing just fine.
Okay, we'll get to Mick later. Matt, we'll get to Mick later. We want to talk to you about that because we do not get it. But let's not start there. Let's start with what's going on at McLaren. Yes. What's your feelings on what happened at Monza, the season at large, the rest of the season to come?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I'm just left feeling a little blue, honestly, because the fact is, though. I mean, I commit. I'm telling you, I literally have everything I need to hand.
For those listening, he just turned his light blue. So you can go watch this on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify. Anyway, yes, go on.
Go subscribe to the Red Flags podcast. There you go.
Yes,
yeah, there you go. I've been around this game. Anyway, so the whole thing about the McLaren situation is that I didn't actually get to see it live. So I was checking up with like text updates on my phone. I'm like, okay, Oscar, wait. How did Oscar? Yeah, my boy, yeah! And then eventually, basically almost a Zach Brown, yeah! Slapped somebody's back in the local vicinity. But I'm just like, ultimately though, I saw, what happened? Why, how does Charles, I mean, I'm happy that Charles Leclerc won, il predestinato, of course. Right. But ultimately though, it's just the McLaren situation. I just feel like it's just gone to this situation where you need to actually sit down with Oscar and go like, Oscar, we love you, and we realize that we need to actually give you instructions, because if you don't, you're just going to make Lando look like a chump, basically. And Oscar's just probably like, he didn't say I couldn't. So I think with Piastri and Webber, they got McLaren giving them everything they wanted, because McLaren were just middling. Like, sure, they got a podium with Lando and Imola. Yeah, okay, fine. But it was a drop-off, because, James Key, their old car designer, who's now, I mean, would you look at that? Sauber. And look where they are right now. They changed the concept. It's Key's concept. Boom! 10th. I mean, don't be surprised if Mattia goes, pronto, James. As in, like, and then also, seriously, I think that's where we're going to go. But I feel like with Oscar and Mark, they came at a time when McLaren were in the doldrums. They were sort of middling. They weren't near the front. And then you look at the start of 2023, they were at the back. And I think that Oscar's team got really good deal. They say, oh, well, we kind of want equal status at the moment. And at that time, I think Zach and Andrea and the McLaren team, they go, yeah, sure. Okay. Whatever you want. Just sign with us, please. So I think now they weren't expecting to do this well. And they weren't expecting Red Bull to have gone sideways. So I feel like McLaren weren't ready to be the top dogs this year. Next year, it's all to play for. And every single team is going to be thinking, right, we can't have one great driver and one, second fiddle driver because we need the constructors. And I feel like the constructors is what McLaren wants the most, because It's all about bragging rights. Zach has come into McLaren. He's seen it at its worst. And yeah, sure. The last time McLaren won the Drivers' Championship was back in 2008, 16 years ago. They haven't won the Constructors' Championship this century.
The glory's in the Drivers' Championship. The money, and maybe some, like, hey, and our investors are happy, isn't that lovely, is in the Constructors.
There's been a lot of videos being made. A lot of content creators are pointing out, Williams, they didn't give a shit. The PK Mansell thing was completely pissed away. You know? And McLaren has a history of hiring Prost and Senna for the same team and potentially pissing that away. So it's like certain teams, they just don't care necessarily.
Yeah. No, and Williams, even this year, they still they say they don't care about the constructors, but they do, because James Vowles has always been like, I mean, I don't know what's going on with him right now. You know, he and Carlos get a room, in fact, have you heard the news that he basically wants he wants Ferrari to let Carlos leave early for the Abu Dhabi test, for the Abu Dhabi Young Driver test. And it's like, and I'm thinking, he wants Carlos so bad. It's like, I feel bad for Logan and Franco right now, because it's just like, he's talking about his next big toy right there. But the thing is, though, is that Williams go, we don't care about the constructors. You know, pulling a Ross Brawn, going, if we got ninth, I don't care. Looks at Alpine. Albon scores points. Oh, that $10 million looks nice. Yoink. So that's the thing. Even though teams say they don't care about the constructors, they do. But you're right. The glory is right there. But the thing is, though, is that Lando needs to convert those poles. And has he had like 4 or 5 this year?
Yeah.
It's a multiple amount. But the thing is, though, is that ultimately it's not been converted through one thing or another. And I just feel like that it is going to be at that point where Lando is going to get Leclerc just coming up and going, hello, Lando. Nice championship challenge you got there. And yeah, I feel like it could easily be the case that if things aren't too careful, Lando will lose that footing, that platform. And I just feel like we weren't really expecting this like 5 or 6 races ago, a championship challenge. We were all thinking that 2025. We're thinking, oh, okay, this would be quite cool. Oh, okay, that could happen. But we need just one DNF. We've been starved of DNFs. We've barely had any. And we used to like having like 4, 5, 6 of them. But then ultimately we don't get them. And when you get one, it's like, somebody retired! And you just have to go back to the 90s and 2000s, and half of the grid wouldn't even make it. But
right, the reliability is too good now.
It is too good, because there's so many times where every single car, which is great for the engineers. The engineers are going like, well done, excellent, well done, brilliant, lovely, we've earned our paycheck. Whereas everyone else is like, this is basically the case of, where are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny how the season starts and we're complaining that it's another runaway. Then we have a McLaren challenger, and now we're complaining that they're not challenging just the way we'd like. It's just like we're just becoming an outrage machine. And I'm just happy. I'm happy that we get to have, an outside title chance and a teammate battle. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but I don't get why everybody's so angry. Like, Lando to me is not this person who's being persecuted. He's persecuting himself just as much as McLaren is persecuting him.
I hear this. Can I say, because I've been thinking about it and stewing over it as well, and I've come to a different conclusion than you, Matthew.
Of course.
I'm with you on that. I'm not saying that Lando has stepped up to the plate this season, and Lando has been like, oh, he deserves it. He just deserves it. Look at how he's driven. But what happened in Hungary was team orders. They instituted team orders. They had papaya rules in Hungary, and Lando, even though they pitted him and he undercut Oscar, he then built a significant gap to the point where Oscar was not going to catch him. And he had to significantly slow down in order to give Oscar that point back. And listen, how it happened was gross. They completely emotionally manipulated him. They made him promises, emotional promises, that now they're like, what? New phone? Who dis? Like, that's the point. This is the turning point of the season. If this had just been the whole time, oh, we don't do that. We just race hard and that's what it is. But Then all of a sudden, Lando's in the position to win the race, and they tell him on the last lap to slow the fuck down and give Oscar back his win. So they've instituted this shit before, and now everyone wants to kind of, why would they compromise Oscar's race for Lando? Well, they compromised Lando's race for Oscar.
But that was to make up for the fact that they had screwed Oscar.
The start in particular, Lando bogged down because it turned out there was a technical issue with his car, and he had reported it before that he was having problems with acceleration, and it came back at the start. And Oscar, and this is a thing I've noticed with Piastri, and this is a tactic he has. Oscar likes to hug the inside line. And what happens at Hungary, and Michael Schumacher and Barrichello did it in 2010, is that Oscar was going straight. Lando was like, oh no, I'm losing my pole! Almost put Oscar in the wall, expecting that Oscar would yield. Oscar didn't yeah, no, mate. It just carried on. And then Lando had to yield. And then Max is on the outside and go, oh, Lando, nice pole, mate. And then basically just tries to get him on the outside. Oscar just slips in the inside and grabs the lead. While because Max has got Lando's got the Max mist, as in I must beat Max. Oh, Oscar beat me. Damn. And that's the thing. Oscar's more happy to take the opportunity when he has it. And he built up a good lead. And as we found out, the MCL38 is really great when it comes to clean air. So if you get that car in front, it's not the Mercedes, when they were in their dominant era. They were always used to being at the front. So when they got stuck behind people, their cars overheated. And they just didn't like the dirty air. And Oscar managed to pull out maybe 4 or 5 seconds or so. So a decent amount of time. And I just feel eventually they gave Lando the undercut anyway, because that was the plan. It was McLaren did not expect Oscar to take the lead and think, okay, well, if Oscar's got the lead and he did it of his own accord and, he didn't crash into Lando or anything, shouldn't we give him the undercut to keep that lead? No, we planned Lando beforehand. Oh, okay. All right. And they just stuck to their original plan. That was the main issue.
I thought that what the sense coming out of that was whoever is leading at the end of turn one, is whoever's leading after turn one, that's our guy. This is who's winning this race.
Yeah, and yet they decided to undercut Lando anyway.
Lando was in trouble, so they wanted to get Lando out of trouble. So they were we're going to get Lando out of trouble, and then they're going to give it back. That was the plan.
But then that turned out not to be necessary.
It was out of an abundance of a caution that they pitted Lando early.
That's the problem with McLaren. They are too cautious, and they said that they're not going to change their ways. They're going to remain cautious because, go back to 2019 and then 2020, 2021. When they would be in the position for a podium, they don't take risks. They lock down things. They don't gamble. They keep where they are. They hold position. That's the thing you hear about McLaren, hold position all the time. So they just want to make the most of a good opportunity when they get it. 2023, exact same thing. If they found themselves getting a good podium or even getting that sprint win, Lando was coming up on Oscar, and they told him, hold position behind Oscar. And then Lando's like, I am faster. I am faster. Yeah, no, mate. No, don't try it. And then, that's the thing. So they did actually impose team orders last year at the Qatar sprint. Oscar got that lead in the sprint, and they kept it. And that rubbed salt into the wound for the fact that Lando botched that last corner in qualifying. So the Qatar Grand Prix for Lando last year was just absolutely abysmal in terms of morale.
And let's not forget that who Oscar replaced. They put Daniel Ricciardo in their car. They were totally wanting Daniel Ricciardo to be the Daniel Ricciardo of old. They never wanted just to have one guy. They've always wanted two guys. So I feel that's just their MO, and it's been that way for a long time. And people remember the Daniel years as Daniel struggled and Lando emerged as this number one driver, but I don't think that was in their calculus. They thought they were getting superstar Daniel Ricciardo, and they're we have two superstars. That's always been their MO, I think.
No, I would agree. And I would say the fact that Daniel did disappoint and then Lando excelled, it probably gave Lando the feeling of being invincible. He managed to best an 8-time Grand Prix winner and was clearly ahead of Daniel. And Daniel was on the wane. So therefore, it would have made Lando feel absolutely incredible. And then Oscar comes along, and then by the end of the season, yeah, sure, Lando still comes out as the best, but it's not as simple. And it's not going to be a case of Oscar learning and then just being the number two.
Well, it's also if they potentially gave up the 1-2 by not doing. It's like they could have been 1-2 in Monza. So and then all of a sudden Leclerc wins in Monza, and then all of a sudden now there people are talking about Ferrari potentially winning this constructors championship and them being back in the saddle. So this, it's like they are bottling it. That's what.
Yeah,
and the number one driver
they're bottling the constructors. Do you think they're bottling the constructors?
If you're just looking at numbers with regards to Monza, they bottled the constructors. Charles Leclerc won that race partially because they didn't execute team orders, because they didn't have a plan going in, because they let them fight. That's how Charles Leclerc won that race.
Yeah, because I will admit that the overtake that Oscar did was absolutely outrageous and amazing. The thing is, though, is that they did end up fighting each other. I think they were within like 3 or 4 seconds of each other, and they were fighting so hard. I think Lando went off at the second chicane and had to take the escape road. And then there were a couple of mistakes in the pit stops as well, and they were fighting each other really hard. As in, Lando was hustling Oscar, and Oscar was having to defend from Lando. So they were both having to duke it out. They lost all their rubber. They lost their tires. Had they not done that, and had McLaren just gone like, okay, all right, this is complicated things, but okay, Max is 6th, whatever, fine. You're going to take some points. And then they should have just hold position and then just say, look, keep a 5-second gap. Don't get any dirty air. Hold the tires. You can try a 1-stop. And they might have been able to do it, but they couldn't do it. They were stuck with a 2-stop because their tires were shot. And they needed a couple more laps. They might have overtaken Charles, or at least Oscar might have done it. But there were so many opportunities for it to be done. But, yeah.
I don't think anybody's arguing that, like, them racing each other cost them the win in Monza. But if you're Zach Brown, I'm just wondering, is that maybe the cost of doing business if you want these two drivers? And is there an argument to be made to say, well, I'd rather have this problem than the problem that Red Bull are having, and that's just that, and then that's just it. So yeah, we'll lose a Monza, but we'll get a Hungary. We're gonna get most of the time. We're gonna get maximum results, and instead of having, a Max and a Checo, or even a Leclerc and a Sainz, we're gonna have guys that are like getting the most out of the car every week, and occasionally will throw away a few points. And actually, Oscar's now finishing ahead of Max a lot of the time, which is, helping Lando in a lot of. It's taking Oscar's also taking points away from Max every time he finishes ahead of him. So yeah, is it better when Lando finishes ahead of both of them? Yes, absolutely. But Checo it would be nice if Checo could finish ahead of Lando in those races where the Red Bull is dominant, but he never does. So, I mean, it's not as black and white. There's like a lot of gray.
That's all true, but if then if you destroy the relationship with Lando and he wants out, these are the issues of having the two it's all well and good having two number one drivers when you're not competing for the championship. Then it's amazing. Then you get the most out of your car. All of a sudden, oh my God, like we're ahead of where we maybe should have been in the constructors because we have two great drivers. But now all of a sudden you're actually fighting for the championship. There's larger stakes at play here. And then and listen, they might be fine. They might internally be saying to themselves, hey, Lando's actually we'll stick with Oscar. Maybe they've actually picked their long-term guy, and it might be Oscar because of what he's showing for the second half of this season and what he's been able to show this season.
Yeah, and it just goes back to all of these new contracts they keep earning. Have you noticed that we no longer get contracts where they say how many years it's for? It's just a multi-year contract or something and beyond. So I feel like contracts have gotten so complex now that you can't have a hard set amount of years attached to a team. There are so many conditions probably that could easily trigger the team getting rid of the driver or the driver getting out of the team or something like that. It's just gotten really detailed. Both Oscar and Lando have signed multi-year contracts going towards a year $1,050,000,000 or something like that. But it could easily be changed. And if the situation comes where Lando's not happy, he could go. And I don't think any movement will happen until the middle of 2026, because everyone will know where everyone is in terms of the hierarchy
Power.
with the new regulations.
Yeah.
And then everyone will start to make their move. Either Max will just go, yeah, I don't like this, I'm out. As in, I don't like this car, I'm out of here. Bye. And then Lando will swoop in with Red Bull if they remain pretty good. And he's guaranteed the number 1 slot alongside Liam Lawson or something like that. So if he can get that, if Lando can get the number one without question, which I think Helmut Marko would do, I think so. I think that would happen. And Piastri would then be free to be the number 1 at McLaren, and McLaren, if they get it good, that's fine. Bortoleto can come in, and he would be the number 2, and it would just go from there.
Right, but I just actually, even if it maybe I'm wrong, but if Lando left and they had the best car, they would try to find another guy. I don't think they would ever be satisfied with just Oscar. You know what I mean? I just don't think that this doesn't seem.
Fair.
That this doesn't seem the way that they do business. They want. It seems like they want Prost and Senna on the same team.
They're
Like,
dying
that's
for it.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the Newey. Let's get into the Newey thing.
Okay.
Newey's going to Aston. How
$30 million a
quickly-
year.
30 million
Yeah.
a year. What do you think is the impact? How fast and effective is Newey's impact over at Aston?
You got to look at what they did with Red Bull. Red Bull were prepared to splash out the cash for Adrian Newey's dominance, and it took time. It took a lot of time for Newey's influence to come good, and it came of a regulation change. As in, we might see some influence of Newey's design in 2026. We might not. It might take Red Bull. They hired Adrian Newey. He arrived in 2006. He had nothing to do with the 2006 car. 2007, that came along. The car actually was fairly good, but it was absolutely unreliable. So it was bad. Then the 2008 car, it was unreliable again. And then 2009, that's when it started to get results and went for the Constructors and helped Vettel and Webber go for the championship. It took like 3 years or something. It took 3 years at Red Bull, and they were gaining more and more money. So I think with Aston Martin, it's gonna take time. I wouldn't be surprised that, and this is really, really pressured, because Honda has said, we want to be fighting for the Constructors in 2026. Immediately. The first year of being together. That's gonna be difficult. And I don't know what's gonna happen. I have no idea. But I'm predicting Aston Martin won't be going for the title until like maybe 2028. At least. So it'll improve. It'll get better. But it won't be anything if the Honda engine goes bang. Because that's going to be the thing. Brand new power units, brand new cars, they're going to be fragile. They're going to be so fragile. These engines, power units, they're going to be burnt through like crazy. Because we're getting 9 days of preseason testing. So there's 9 days of it. Because there's brand new regulations, brand new era, all that stuff. Completely different power units in terms of the synergy with the electrical stuff. So
How long is this next regulation set for?
until 2030.
Till 2030.
Damn.
Yeah, 2029 will be the last season. And apparently, Stefano Domenicali, the boss of F1, he said he's not afraid to be talking about what Sebastian Vettel's been peddling with his race without trace campaign. So basically, e-fuels, sustainable fuels with classic V8s and V10s. Potentially. And F1 can't go full electric until 2040 or something, because Formula E's got like an exclusivity deal. So there's no chance of F1 going full electric.
Vankahs, as you know, we have teamed up with BetMGM this season. They are our presenting sponsor. And in fact, today, because we're recording this on Sunday, I put $100 on Lando Norris to win this race. And guess what? I won 185 because he was plus 185. And I did that on BetMGM. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code DADDY and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code DADDY. Deposit at least $10 and place a wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code DADDY when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY for New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP for Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 for Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF for Indiana. 1-800-981-0023 for Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code DADDY and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Now back to the show. We mentioned Mick earlier. We know that you're a big... Can you explain? Because we are not on the Mick Schumacher train. We don't get it. We think that there's just a nepo baby aspect to it, and we're both two guys who work in the entertainment industry, so there's a lot of that going around. And then Mick Schumacher, he wins in F2, but in his second year, and he barely wins, Callum Ilott almost takes that championship. And then he has ultimately, he trounces Mazepin, but then Kevin Magnussen comes in off the bench for a year, barely knows how to put the helmet on, and completely dominates him for that season. And there's all this fervor around Mick. But is it just emotional heartstrings for you because you grew up with Michael and you want to see it, or do you think that there's real, true blue talent there?
It's a little, yes.
Yeah,
of course.
A little
There's
what?
An emotional connection. A little bit of an emotional connection with Michael. Yes, a little bit. Because you watch the documentary Schumacher and you realize how much of an impact it made, and you just feel like what's been lost about the whole thing with Mick and the crashes. They happened. You can't deny it. It absolutely happened. And I'm a Mick fan, and I'm like, okay, fine. And he doesn't get the Alpine seat because of Jack doing. But okay, the reason why I think is that it's the commitment. It's the ethos. Mick Schumacher at the Spanish Grand Prix last year put in all that time. He pulled in an all-nighter in the simulator because George and Lewis were struggling at the Spanish Grand Prix. Look what happens. They end up with a double podium. Boom. In the W14. It's one instance. One particular instance which I think made a good impact for Mercedes when they're not in a particularly good position. But when you get to a situation, what he's doing over at Alpine with the World Endurance Team, and consider how Alpine's been. Alpine, who just seem to sack everybody almost every week, or at least until recently. But you look at the World Endurance Championship, and Mick, especially in COTA, he was the fastest guy in that car by quite a bit, and he dragged that car, that Alpine car, which both of them died in Le Mans, and he got that into 9th place. And for Alpine's first year in World Endurance, that's not bad. This is their first year with Alpine, but basically, he's around much more experienced people in World Endurance, and he's just come in and been Alpine's best guy in terms of commitment. I appreciate Mick for the fact, in terms of a team manager, if I were a team manager, I want people who are working with the team commitment and in terms of enthusiasm and just sheer grit and just working in synergy with the team. And that's what I appreciate with Mick. Mick is an amiable guy, and he will just give everything. Alpine, he just gives everything to the team. He gives everything to what he's given. WEC, he could have gone fine, okay. But no, he just put everything into it.
Okay, so I want to drill down on this. I want to get a little more ethereal with it because we know you're an Alonso fan. We know you're an Oscar Piastri fan. And I feel like you can do sort of I can look at a person's favorite drivers and tell a lot about their personality and what their values are. Okay. So for you to say, okay, I really like Oscar Piastri. Okay. I really like Alonso. I feel like the picture is coloring in of who you are. And then you go, and Mick Schumacher. My signals are totally scrambled. Because you kind of you give me two Terminators, two cyborg killers, with their legs ripped off and they're now using their arms to crawl at you and kill you. And then you're giving me kind of a little bit Golden Retriever Mick Schumacher energy. So I'm trying to kind of complete your Sun Moon Rising here. And
absolutely.
With what the Mick Schumacher of it all means with the Oscar Piastri. Can you help me square that circle?
Certainly. Basically, if it were me being a team principal, Oscar would be my guy. Fernando would be that guy. 2012. Fernando does things in that F2 2012 that should not be possible. And that's why I absolutely fell in love. That season made me think, that Alonso guy, wow. He's just gives everything. If the team's with him, brilliant. Oscar, he's got that dry wit. He's got that ruthlessness. Brilliant. I want him as my leader. Mick, though, I want him as my second guy. And I want him to be the guy who's there with Piastri, who's just giving in, working together. And then there'll be an opportunity for him to have his own moment as well. And just
he's your locker room guy.
He's your Pippin.
He's my second guy. He's if I could have a team, it'd be Piastri and Mick. Because Mick's done a lot in WEC. And he's able to drag that team
Wait a minute. So you get your 11th team on the grid. You have any drivers, two drivers you want. You got unlimited budget. You are hiring Oscar Piastri, and then forget Sainz, forget Pierre
Oh yeah, I'm a professional yapper on top of the ladder, dude.
Yes.
Hey, it's like, I'm just a guy on a ladder. What do I know?
You don't sound like a guy on a ladder. You sound more intelligent than a guy in an attic. But anyway.
I know. I'm self-deprecating, but I get what you mean. It's a little bit of a right turn. I fully understand, and I respect if people are like, nah, that's not for me. Nah, I'll check out. But I just think, sure, if you're talking about salaries and egos and all that stuff, I'm thinking Piastri and Schumacher together would make a really good team, and they would clearly understand each other. And then all that other extra salary I could get with, instead of a Sainz and Albon and all that stuff, that could be put together towards getting the right people and the right car and the right development. And I just feel like I think that's the way I would do it. That's not everybody's cup of tea. Absolutely not. And that's fine. That's absolutely okay. But it's just something that I notice, and it's just, that's what I want from a driver. In terms of like, I want an absolutely talented guy with potential, and I just want also somebody who's committed to the team and who would be there until 2 a.m. with the mechanics.
So speaking of teammate dynamics, so you're clearly of a I want a number one and a one. Let's call him a 1A or 1B. Yeah. So how do we feel about this? Because I feel like we might be having the same exact conversation next year with Ferrari, because they're clearly going for two. Like, that's the same idea. It's like, we just want two alphas on the team.
Absolutely. And the thing is, though, Charles did an excellent situation, as in, like, he just went Monza, second time, baby. And where's Lewis? 5th. Where's he after qualifying going, I'm not good enough. I didn't do good enough in qualifying, man. And he was hard on himself, and he was thinking that the energy of the Tifosi would seep in and just drown out the noise from Toto saying, no, Luis, you can absolutely do this, you're absolutely fastest of all. And then you just get Fred going, oh, Luis, we are looking forward to having you, and just good luck with Ferrari and stuff. You think he would have gotten some of that Ferrari juice. There was no juice. Where's the juice? That's the thing, there wasn't any. In qualifying, it wasn't there. Lewis was okay. He finished ahead of Max. Cool. If this were 2021, he'd be happy. But it just wasn't there. And Charles goes and wins it convincingly. And the Ferrari fell in love with Charles all over again. And this is all at the right time, when Lewis is now starting to get a bit wistful and like, oh, actually, it's happening. I'm leaving Mercedes. That ain't good at all. So this was like a good in terms of like, hey, Lewis, welcome. I look forward to working with you. Roscoe and Leo, they're going to get on absolutely dandy. But the fact is, though, this is my team. And if you want to try and beat me, you got to try and beat me on the track. And also, this was really interesting. In terms of, like, the two drivers with the biggest social media presence, it's Charles and Lewis. Both of them have the most Instagram followers, they have the most Twitter followers, and Charles has more engagement than Lewis. I know it's surprising, but Charles has... People talk more about Charles than they do about Lewis. It's close, but it's not much. But I just feel like Ferrari are not prepared for the storm. Sure, Lewis is going to bring that team to be worth $5 billion or something like that for next year. Because you got Lewis, a mega brand, going to Ferrari, a mega brand. This Titanic brand coming out of it, fantastic, bring it for the bottom line. And Lewis might be on absolute cloud 9, brand new team. He gets to live out a dream, fantastic, brilliant. I'm looking forward to seeing him, and I'm happy for him. But I just feel like the online discourse is going to be interesting. And that's the best case scenario. It's going to be absolutely... Yeah, Lewis's fans and Charles fans, they're going to tear each other apart, whereas Toto is just like, your problem. Your problem. Bye.
Well, okay. Lewis brings an army, like, Lewis has the Lewis fans. Lewis has, like, a fan base that will be coming, you know, like, how many, you know, Brits who are so obsessed with Lewis that will be... all of a sudden now rooting for Ferrari, whereas like the established Ferrari fans who are like, I'm a Ferrari fan, and they've been with Charles the last however many years, six plus years, like that will be the thing. Now they're paying, it's just, they are heading into this thing though, because they're paying Lewis a insane amount of money. And then, you know, there will be, and it'll all be fine and dandy as long as they're not competing for the championship. But then all of a sudden, if they're competing for the championship, and then one of them is getting a call, hey, like, don't fight. Hey, like, bring it in for the team. Hey, like,
it's Ferrari.
It's Ferrari.
Yeah, it's Ferrari. They wrote the book when it came to team orders. They wrote the book.
But neither. Do you think either one of them is? Do you think Lewis Hamilton's going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll help fight Charles' corner, or do you think Charles is going to be like, yeah, I'll fight Lewis's corner?
I don't see that happening, and I'm like, I ain't gonna predict that, man. I am not touching that with a 100-foot barge pole, and I'm like, I just want to see it on the track and see what they do. Maybe Lewis might be he might be in the honeymoon period and be like, Charles, you're great, you're fantastic, I want to see you do the well. But then ultimately, it may just come down to, by the time you get towards the European leg, when we start to know where everyone is, it might just get ugly. And then you'll be thinking, we've got until 2027 with this, who's going to leave? Because I think Charles has an exit clause in 2027. If he's not happy, he can leave. So he can. And then Lewis is done until 2027. So potentially, we could see this being opened the door, potentially, to Oliver Behrman getting to Ferrari. If Charles and Lewis basically, it goes absolutely thermonuclear and they both leave. Right. That's crazy.
And that's the threat with this kind of thing. Because it's like, right now, Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, he wins the race, he's speaking Italian, everyone's in love. Oh my God, what a perfect... The story, everything, his father, all of it. What a perfect place for Charles. When you bring in Lewis, and there's a situation, and honestly, it's not that dissimilar from the Oscar Lando thing, within like the fact that like Lando could have gone to Red Bull. Zach was like, I started with you. There's a loyalty to McLaren that Lando has shown. And that there's even when he didn't fight Ricciardo in Monza, it was the two of them leading, and he was like, "Can I fight?" And they were like, "Nope, do not fight, stay there." In Lando's mind, he could have potentially like actually taken it to Daniel and won the Monza GP, but he didn't. And then he was Lando no wins for however many more years there. with Charles and Lewis, there is a threat. Like if all of a sudden Charles has to take a backseat to Lewis, and all the goodwill that Charles has put in at Ferrari is undone by it's like, well, Lewis is here now, and then that relationship sours, and then they lose Charles. That is like a potential for what is going to happen. That also, and listen, that might be what they want to do. I think at McLaren, it's actually like, it makes more sense because Oscar's younger than Lando. He's young. They can have a long-term thing here. Whereas Lewis is, what is he, 40 now?
Yeah,
or he's about
40,
to turn 40. He's about to be 40. It's like, how many more years does Lewis have left? And if they destroy the relationship that Ferrari has with Charles in attempts to like appease Lewis, then you lose both of them potentially.
Yeah, I mean that would be an absolute shock because Charles grew up with Ferrari his whole life, and if he were to leave, I don't see that happening. Ultimately, it would take a huge rift for him to leave. Like, absolutely monolithically sized bad vibes from him to actually go, I'm out.
Right, because they've treated him so well this whole time, so it would be real whiplash, And he breathes Ferrari. He's been Ferrari. He's loved Ferrari even when he was a kid. Absolutely. He had that mentality. He was going to be a Ferrari driver. And if that soured, then that's probably the biggest, that would be bigger than Lando falling out with McLaren. By magnitudes. I guess it's like these are. I guess maybe. I mean, this is something that Brian and I have talked about. It's like if Zach Brown and Fred Vasseur are thinking, well, what if Lando? If there's a thought in their head, they go, well, what if Lando and Oscar are fighting for a title and Lando gets pissed and leaves? Zach's like, well, then that means that I've done something pretty special. It means I've built the best car and I've hired a second great driver. And these are all good problems to have. It's the same thing with Lewis and Leclerc. It's like, these are good problems to have. These are high-class headaches. And, if Lando's happy, then that means my Oscar signing was idiotic. And if Charles is happy, that means my Lewis signing was idiotic. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's also like downsides to not having these headaches. I mean, so like sometimes like that high pressure headache is like the best possible outcome for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, no, I would say that that's the thing. It's like having the two best drivers, it's shown with McLaren, their consistency, their reliability. Oscar being the only driver to have completed every single lap this year, finishing the European circuit, he's the only one to have finished every single lap. That consistency and reliability, that's why he scored so many points. And that's why Formula One, I feel like, have been stirring the pot with all of their infographics on their Twitter by basically going, ooh, look at that. In the European Championship for F1, Oscar wins by Max by 2 points and Lando's third. So yeah, that's not going to spark controversy now, is it? Everyone's like, they're absolutely just going like, oh, Oscar's good, isn't he? And that's just aggravating the Lando supporters.
Vankahs, not only does Cash App sponsor our favorite perfectly branded Formula One team, but they also make it easier for you to save money so you can do things that you love, like going to an F1 race. Boobies. Listen, to be honest, we thought that Cash App was just a way to send people money, right? You just send people money. Hey, Cash App me. Okay, I got you. But actually, it's a faster and simpler way to bank. You can start saving with as little as $1 with no hidden fees, no minimum balance requirements, and no account fees. Minimum balance requirements is crazy. It's just like, let me live. And Cash App lets you do that. And we all know that overdraft fees make no sense. Why are you charging someone if they don't have any money? Plus, when you deposit $300 or more in paychecks, you can get up to $50 in free overdraft coverage. It pays to get paid on Cash App. So go download the app today. Now back to the show.
Law, has it always been this way? Has it always been like, this is like, it kind of feels like politics? Like,
I feel like
if you're a Lando guy or an Oscar guy, or if you're a Lewis guy or a Max guy, or it just becomes.
I feel like the sports become aware that it's a thing. They know it's a thing now and are prepared to go cha-ching. As in, like, really? What do you think they did with Lewis and Max throughout 2021? They milked that. They made a special intro for the race in Abu Dhabi, for goodness sake. They made that, they hyped that up to absolute hell and back. So you just think, that's absolutely insane. It's gonna happen. Like, if it ends up going down to the wire in Abu Dhabi between Lando and Max, there's gonna be a special graphic, there's gonna be they're gonna talk about this all the time. It's gonna be, if there is something to be fought, of course. So, I do feel like it's not gonna be a cakewalk for Max, and Max is just thinking, thank goodness I won those 7 races.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what do you think? What do you think's going to happen? We've got 8 races left. Who do you? What's the rest of this season look like? What's your prediction?
Okay, well, I feel like Red Bull will eventually get something. They'll fix something with their RB20, but they're going to have to make a call about this year's car and next year's car fairly soon. They all will. So I feel like we'll get a couple. Well, people will have one more major upgrade package, and that'll be that. I feel like Mercedes, I think each of the top 4 teams will win at least one more race between them. McLaren will have one more big upgrade, because apparently they've got a major floor upgrade which they've been really reluctant to use because they're not quite sure whether it will work or not, because they've seen Mercedes struggle with it, they've seen Ferrari struggle with it, so they're a bit cautious about it. And I feel like
correlation seems so good. It seems like everything that
it is good, yeah, work. But they are wary of it, because right now they are the fastest car and the fastest team, no matter what they say. McLaren keeps going, "Oh, we're not the fastest." No, you are. No, you are. The data says it. It is. You've got the best all-round car. But I feel like they're like, okay, we've got that. Why do we need to change it? Why do we need to bring these upgrades when we can just go, you know what? Let's just put some more time into it and make sure it's absolutely peachy. Or we may not even need it. We can put that all development toward the 2025 car. So I feel like McLaren they will get their act together, but they do need to sit down and think about their strategy. They need to sit down with Lando and Oscar and come up with a bit better plan than papaya rules. And they just need to think, because Oscar said, if I'm told to support Lando, I'll do it. I just need to be told. But if he's not told, then it's open game. That's the fact of the matter. I do feel like the Drivers' Championship, it's something that any team would want, but I think right now McLaren's priority, their plans for this year will probably go like, okay, if there's an opportunity for the Constructors, let's take it, because Checo is not bringing it in. And the Drivers' Championship is secondary, but still a goal. So, if they can get it, fantastic. Absolutely. But the Constructors is more attainable.
I mean, you would know this better than we do, but like, I feel like you tend to latch onto a driver more than you latch onto a team. I know you like McLaren, but
no, that's fair.
Where did that? Can you give us the lore? Yeah. Can you give us the lore?
Sure,
Law?
absolutely. So I was always a Ferrari well-wisher when I was a kid, and I went to McLaren when Fernando went to McLaren. How well timed was that? How well timed was that, considering?
Right.
But I stuck with them. I stuck with McLaren through thick and thin, even though it was really bad. And I liked the aura that Alonso and JB had. You know, just having that, they got on with each other. It was probably the most relaxed teammate that Alonso ever had. Because JB was just like, yeah, cool, man. It's all good. You know, we're mates.
Wait, you mean the second time that Alonso went to McLaren, not the first time? You mean
second time?
I see.
Second time when he was teammates with Buttons.
Okay. I thought
really
you were talking
bad
about
time.
07.
No.
They're both
not the first time.
They're both terrible. They're both terrible times for him.
Yeah, but I stuck with them, and I just stuck with the team
drivers
throughout that. And then when Carlos, and then I was starting to like Carlos, and then I liked Carlos, and then it just kind of just evolved, and I just stuck with the team. Really, it was sad to see Carlos go because he was a really good, smart thinker and a team leader. And then, really, it just stayed. Really. I had my favorite drivers, sure, but McLaren is my team.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, if you are a fan of a team and the drivers come and go, there is maybe an ethos that you might want to protect. Like, I mean, yes, could you be alienating the Lando fans for behaving like this? Sure, but like, let's look at the other side of it, right? Ferrari, stop manipulating, right? Red Bull with Checo. Like or with Mark Webber, or like they clearly have a second driver. Like that's irksome to people. So there's really like kind of no way that you can make anyone happy. And there probably are people out there that's like, this is cool. This is fucking cool that there's a team that's just like, fuck it. We're a racing team, go racing. And so there's really like, no way that it's like there's no way you're going to like net everybody.
No, of course.
Right.
You're definitely not going to please everybody.
I mean, I fell into McLaren because in 2019 they had their new Forever Forward campaign. They basically started over. They realized in 2018, hey, partly the reason why we were bad was not because of Honda. We made a terrible car. Because when they got the Renault engines, they were bad. They were still bad. They were expected to be back 4th, 5th. No, they were 6th, and they didn't do any upgrades after Spain. And I just remember Alonso getting that 5th place in Australia, going, now we can fight. Fight what? And then also, that was what Alonso, Baku 2018, one of Alonso's ballsiest gets back to the pits. He gets punctures on 2 wheels. He's still able to drive that car back to the pits, and he still scores points. Ballsy. He gets 8th.
Speaking of Alonso and McLaren, okay, these people are so committed to no team orders that they let that Hamilton thing get to blackmail, and still they maintained fairness between the two of those guys. Like, if they're willing to let Hamilton and Alonso fight, considering Hamilton was the rookie and Alonso was a team leader, and then Alonso started blackmailing them.
Yeah.
Like, what chance does Lando have if this is the same ethos?
But it's like a guy. It's a guy on his 7th marriage being like, I think this one's going to be different. It's going to work out this time. I mean, it's like, it is fucking insane. It's crazy. Ferrari's run of dominance. The thing that makes Ferrari relevant to any modern fucking F1 thing is the Schumacher era, where there was clear division of labor there, division of power. Same with Mercedes. Like, the great runs and the great championships and like the people that then go on the Mount Rushmore of the shit. This is it is a part of the deal. And maybe they don't want that. They don't want to be, and we're going to go on a run of championship,
Brian, maybe they're A24. Maybe they're an A24. Maybe these are the movies they want. They want to make indie cult classics. They do not want to be box office. You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking. It's like, this is their studio.
That's Zach Brown's deal. He's so alt.
Yeah. Maybe he wants to make My Own Private Idaho that only some people remember. Like, remember when they won the Constructors, but not the drivers with Lando? And this is their River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves. you know.
Are you having like, is this joyous for you, Law, or are you like, is this like, I know it's like this season's been, it's great, and this season it's been amazing. Is it all candy, or is there like at all any like turmoil in your stomach?
It's bittersweet. It's a bittersweet experience. As in, I'm so glad that McLaren are now back at the front and rightly where they should belong in an historical sense. But this is just not the way I want to see it. Like, the mentality.
What's the way you want to see it? What's the way you want to see it?
I want to see it.
Write it. Write it for me.
Okay, sure. So, I would love it to have a situation where, if you had a certain situation where Lando and Oscar knew what was at play here, and there was just clear instruction, and McLaren were willing to take risks, because people, I mean, that's the thing. Christian Horner is known as a guy who, if his drivers crash the car, most of the time he'll excuse it by saying, "Oh, it's okay. They had a go. They had a go trying to overtake that guy. They were ballsy. They had guts. They had determination. They gave it a try. It didn't work out for them. Oh well. They gave it a go. They gave it a darn good try." And that's the thing. There's that tenacity that Horner's like, he's more forgiving if they try. As in, like, their drivers go all out, balls to the wall. And I just think McLaren are just tippy-toeing around the situation to not anger their drivers, because that's the culture that they've instilled over the last 5 years, since they had that tone shift back in 2019, when Lando started. And they were more fun, easygoing, not the clinical McLaren under Ron Dennis, and especially in the 90s and 2000s. They changed their attitude, and they've now got back to the top. But they were really kind of pragmatic and modest and cautious, and that got them back to where they were now. And now they're at the front, they don't know what to do with it. They haven't got that ruthless, okay, we need to see what's going on here, and look where the chips have fallen. Their Lando has a closer chance of getting that championship this year. So we need to, I think, okay, we need to reassess what we're doing, because this plan we thought for next year, it's now this year. Right, we need to bring things forward. So there's a bit more of a dynamism that McLaren aren't doing, because they're still going with the softly approach. So the way I would do it is just think, look, we need to just see where we are right now. Oscar, you just need to see what you can do for the constructors. And Lando, you need to speak up. That's the thing. Lando, if he wants that's the thing. Lando says, I don't want team orders. I want to beat the guy fair and square. I respect that. That's laudable. But championships are not built on playing fair. Because if you don't do that, Oscar's going to just make the most of it. He's going to milk it and go, okay, there's no team orders. Well, I guess you don't mind me overtaking you then. I bet you didn't see that coming. So
yeah, Lando is kind of a purist. He's kind of a purist. Like, Verstappen would never say like, yeah, like you've just been like, what the hell is this guy doing, thinking that he can overtake me, even if he got overtaken. To be fair,
I recall like ages ago, Max was told Daniel was going to let you pass, and then Max was like, no, I don't want that. That's not fair. So there have been times where Max has ignored team orders for his own benefit, like years ago, when championships didn't matter, but he could have won the race or he could have gotten a better position. So there have been moments when they ignore team orders. But the point is now, Lando needs to be on the radio going, look, I'm faster. We've got to think of the championship. He needs to be the vocal guy. And then McLaren that pressure will be taken off the team. It's like, well, the guy in second place in the championship has asked this. Is he faster? Should he really be in this position? Okay, fine. And Hungary could have easily been avoided if Andrea got on the radio. Zach would have done it, but he was over in, I think he was over in IndyCar that weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Toronto.
So he was over there. Andrea needed to get on the radio, or Zach needed to actually, if he was watching the race, call in and go, Lando, let Oscar through now. And then just like, there needed to be that blunt, you need to do this right now from the boss, not go, Lando, the 20 laps. It just dragged on. And it needed to be clear direction and clear instruction, and Lando just needs to pipe up more.
Yeah, well, I think also part of the problem is like this social media persona these guys have cultivated. Like Lando has such a nice, sweet persona, and it's like he probably doesn't want to be the bad guy on the radio. That's probably not like, doesn't that suck? Like if he was a driver in the 70s. If he's
he kind of did that anyway.
Yeah, he did.
He in a passive aggressive way.
Yeah, but passive aggressive in a way, it's not even ballsy. And it's like,
but then he gave the place back at the end of the day. So
right, it was all bad. It was all bad.
No, but he basically the only reason he gave it up was when the final thing that convinced him was, look, if there's a safety car, this is going to muck things up, and you can't overtake him. Or think about it: if there's a safety car 2 laps to go, you're stuck behind it. You can't give that place back. How's that going to make you look? And then Lando's like, "Oh, okay." So that was the thing that got him to do it. But I just feel
and
like
promises,
yeah.
and promises,
yeah,
that
they
would
up to the
fucking
team.
Help him. Oh my God, that was also part of it. Is that they promised that they would fucking help him down the line.
And you think, normally they say into turn 1, who is ahead, they stay ahead, and that should be papaya rules. It's dead simple. Even Alpine follows it.
And turn 2, 3, and 4. After turn 4.
Yeah,
like basically after the first sector.
After turn 4, and then we stop.
And then we stop.
Yeah. So basically,
and by the way, Law, for the listeners, even Oscar's mother was like, "Man, I think you guys are glazing him too much. You could stop now."
I mean, I just think Oscar has that ruthless streak. He does, and Oscar's mum's brilliant. I mean, what a personality to have it in Formula One. Fantastic, brilliant. And I am critical on my videos. If there's something Oscar didn't do I didn't like, I'm more than happy to admit it, because it's like, hey, he had a bad day. Spa, he threw the race of his own because he just bulldozed it into the pits. That Jackman has got arms of steel to the Jackman to not be bowled over. Oscar lost 2 seconds. How much did he lose the race by? 1.1 seconds. Boom. He could have gotten past. So that was on him. And I'm not ashamed of that.
And Zandvoort, he blew it. He had bad qualifying, I think, in Zandvoort, wasn't it?
Yeah, the reality is...
Yeah, relatively, yeah. And then the thing is, though, is that he got a bad start. He let George ahead, and George was just
backed him up.
He basically got the lessons from in 2019 when he was partners with Giga Kubica. Basically, I'm not going to overtake. I'm not going to let anyone overtake me. And George just ate up, the dirty air. Oscar was stuck there, and he just was compromised. And then he was stuck behind Charles, because he just didn't have that confidence in the McLaren to be able to make that just lick the stamp and send it. Like Daniel was, ironically, who was a McLaren driver. There are some things that Oscar needs to work on. Absolutely.
No, Oscar has not had a perfect season. The reality is, I think in the last, 5 or 6 races, he's really found his form, and he has emerged.
Spa was amazing. Spa was fantastic.
But the reality is, the first half of the season, he was, Lando had his number, and he was put in. He's
in qualifying. He had his number in qualifying.
And he still has his number in qualifying.
Right. And I think that's the thing is they complement each other in these horrible ways where
yes.
where Lando will qualify better, but Oscar is better at starts, maybe a little more ruthless so they always end up in these situations. And
between
if
the combination
they could do the
of them
Super
is,
Saiyan.
Yes,
they could do the Super Saiyan fusion.
Driver.
Oh, well, I know all about the Super Saiyan fusion. All right.
Are you being facetious, or are you actually up on that lore?
Oh, I do, absolutely. Are you familiar with Team 4 Star or anything? Like Dragon Ball Z Abridged?
No.
It's like a parody.
Now you lost me.
No. No, basically that I was part of a big troupe of doing a parody of Dragon Ball Z. So I know that inside and out.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, so I know all that terminology, but I'm absolutely agreeing. It's just this whole situation is just absolutely it could be so much easier, but McLaren just don't know what to do. They need that ruthless streak back. 2025 needs to be completely different. Absolutely.
Oscar and Lando.
Is it? Yeah. What is the move for 2025?
The mood is going to be everything's reset. Max does not have 7 wins to fall back on like JB did it with Braun in 2009. Mm-hmm. They don't have that. So if Red Bull haven't fixed it, then it's all game. And I don't think any of the I don't think Red Bull, McLaren and Ferrari, no team orders. They can't do that. It has to be all guns, absolutely equal. Mercedes, I don't think they're really going to care too much unless Kimi Antonelli turns out to be absolutely stellar like he was in Formula Regional. And Red Bull, unless if it stays the same, it's just going to be the same.
Vankahs, we wanted to take a second to let you know about our new sponsor, Everyman Jack. Everyman Jack is the OG clean men's care brand Body wash, shampoo, deodorant, skincare, beard care, they have everything you need to get fresh. All their products have naturally derived ingredients with no harsh chemicals. Also, they smell great. All their scents are outdoor inspired. Musky, baby. Gotta bring that masculine energy to wherever environment you're in. They've got signature ones like cedarwood, sandalwood, plus new ones like Pacific cypress and coconut and vanilla. Now I can pretend to be outdoorsy even if I never leave my couch. But the best part is how affordable they are. There's no need to spend over $10 for body wash and deodorant when you can get something incredible for less than that with Everyman Jack. I have their entire face care bundle. It is amazing. They've got a cleanser, a moisturizer, an acne spot. I've got one little spot. You put it on, knocks it out. Post-shave balm. They got everything you need to keep your face looking clear so you can feel your best when leaving your house every day. My favorite is definitely the moisturizer. Some moisturizers can be a little bit too much, a little bit too thick, or too. It's that Goldilocks. That's what you want from the moisturizer. And the Everyman Jack Daily Face Moisturizer is the one that I use every single day, which is why I look so freaking cute on this podcast. Give Everyman Jack a shot today and go to everymanjack.com and use the code REDFLAGS at checkout for 25% off your first order. That's everymanjack.com, code REDFLAGS at checkout for 25% off your first order. Now back to the show.
Drivers champion at the end of the season.
End of the season. I think it's still going to be Max, but the spread will be less than 15 points. As in, it's going to go down to Abu Dhabi.
Will it be less than 7?
Less than 7? No. If it gets
because that seems to be the magic. That's the magic.
I feel like
10,
it's
10
be,
really. 10
really
from this last one.
I feel like if it's 10 or less, Lando is going to be furious. Yeah. If it's more than 10, and if it's more than 15 especially, that's just like Max just did everything he needed to do at the beginning of the season. That's the thing.
2025. World's Drivers Championship.
Driver and Constructors.
I'm gonna put my neck out on the line and say that Piastri is going to be one of the challengers. I say that, and I feel like Charles will be up there as well. I think it's going to be a straight up fight between Charles, Oscar, and Max.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Max can make that
slander against dance. Lewis and Lando.
Lewis is going to be right up there too, but it really depends on what his mentality is and what kind of game he wants to play. It really depends on what he wants to do. If Lewis just wants to get in and have that first season acclimatizing himself to the car, which Ferrari are actually up there, they're working on that car to fit. Seriously, if you look back to last year, 2023, Lewis was very vocal about what he did not like with that car. You seriously think that you're telling me that Ferrari weren't paying attention and writing down notes to go, okay, don't do that, do this. Oh, that's good. Lewis likes that. They'll take that into account and make a car that Charles can work with, of course, but Lewis is more, Lewis likes. And they'll obviously watch what the W15's doing. Ferrari are full of smart people who can interpret what a car does on the track. So they'll make that work, and they will give Lewis a good car. But it depends on whether or not he just wants to kind of get himself in, like, softly, and then go with when the new cars come in for 2026. Because it's quite clear. Lewis has said, I don't like these cars. These cars aren't my jam. They're not for me. I don't like them. Because there's just something about it. With these brand new cars, though, they're going to be more like the 2000s cars in terms of, they're smaller, they're more geared towards, they're less geared towards ground effect. In fact, barely any. They're going to feel like old style cars because I feel like it'd be really interesting to see how the likes of the Alonso and Lewis handle it. That'll be interesting because it looks like a 2000 style car. So that'll be cool.
Yeah.
So I think Lewis will have his own. I think Lewis will win a good couple of races at the very least with Ferrari, but I feel like it's going to be a straight up fight between Charles, Oscar, and Max. Lando and Lewis will obviously get their own fair share of points, but it's really depending about. It just really depends on how things go and what McLaren do with their team orders, because Oscar's going to come out of this season determined, motivated that he's been able to rattle Lando even more. And been able to show it through the streak, which up until now has not been the case, or people forgot because of the whole thing with Alpine. People forgot about it, and now seeing it firsthand what it's like on the track. So, yeah I feel like what we need right now, and this was the thing I was realizing at Austria with Verstappen and Lando, Verstappen and Norris. They were like, it was like Schumacher versus Senna on track. I liken Verstappen to a Schumacher, a Michael. And Lando wants to be a Senna. You get a Schumacher and Senna going together, it's going to be absolutely fireworks. And it's a shame we didn't get to see that in 94 too much. That's a shame. It's an absolute crime that we didn't get to see it.
Yes, Lando is, and I like Senna.
I think you need a Prost, and I think Oscar's a Prost.
Oh wow, slander to some. He's definitely calculated.
He's calculated. He's shrewd, and he doesn't show emotion too much. He'll just think of what he needs to do to get it done. And I feel like with Verstappen, that's the kind of guy you need to go up against to, hoodwink him. And
fire and ice.
Max has said, if I were a team manager and I couldn't drive the car, I'd have Oscar and Lando in my car. Those two, I want them in my car. If he couldn't be a driver.
So Max is an idiot, just like Zach Brown.
I'm pretty sure that Max would have a few more choice, colourful words to say about the situation.
Yeah.
He'd be a lot less diplomatic about it.
Oh, thanks, Law. We'll let you get back to your brood or your
yes. Thank you
your
so
family.
much for
thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube, LawVS, or search on Spotify for The Ladder Man. That's me. LawVSX on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, whichever alternative to Twitter will actually come out on top. But yeah, you'll be able to find me. I talk about ladder stuff. I talk about F1. Yeah, you'll be able to find me there.
Amazing. And then so we start the podcast with "What's up, Vankahs?" Can you honor us with a goodbye, Vankahs?
Goodbye, you Vankahs. Goodbye.